Good afternoon, everyone. That's weird. I don't know this guy over there. 60 minutes left. Okay. Good afternoon again. Thank you for all of you for coming today. You can see I'm shaking, and that's normal. You guys are scaring the shit out of me. So here's the thing. We're gonna have fun today. We're gonna have fun for an hour, and trust me, it's gonna be just great. But I want to start with something really simple. How many people here use JavaScript? Whoa, okay, I should record that. Everyone. So how many people use TypeScript? So by the end of this talk, I hope when I say how many people will be using TypeScript, I want to see this. We have a deal? Great. So let's start. My name is Davy Engone. I'm a software engineer at Philos Lab. Philos Lab is just a JavaScript lab based in Belgium, and we also do some activities in Paris and Amsterdam, and soon London. So we love JavaScript, and we do that all day. I mean, at least 15 hours per day. That is true, guys. You guys do Java all day, at least 8 hours minimum. So 15 hours is not that far. So some people expect to have an agenda here, but I'm not going to give you an agenda. I'm going to give you a few goals. And one of them is obviously the TypeScript thing. But the first one will be, you guys heard stories about Angular a year ago. And I'm here to tell you that your Angular 1 skills are not gone. Angular 2 is coming, but your skills you build over the years, or the last 2-3 years, for those who start using Angular 1, will still be useful. And I will just show you a few tricks that you can apply today that will make you even more relevant in the coming months. The second one is basically try to understand which problem Angular 2 is trying to solve. Because obviously, what people forgot a year ago was like Angular has been around for like 2009. I started using that in 2011. So 2009, 2014 makes 5 years. Hey guys, 5 years in the software engineering world, it's just too long. And there are a lot of problems that came by. And a new tool is there to solve those issues. So I'm trying to show you which problem they're trying to solve. And the last one will just be, how are you guys going to get ready for Angular 2? Those are the 3 points. And by the end of this talk, I just hope that you guys feel like I was able to fulfill them. So a little bit of history. A year ago, was basically in October 2014, we saw this. The Angular team announced that Angular 2 will be a complete rewrite and all the stuff. And I can see people in the room sending tweets, hate tweets, like, what the hell? I've been using Angular 1, and you guys gonna be rewriting everything from scratch? Those are the things. Ruby guys, I mean, they're not even in the room, saying like, okay, making fun of Angular. You saw those kind of tweets. Angular 2, migration path, no migration path, total rewrite, and stuff like that. And this was the best one. Like, it just killed it. That guy said, and that guy is a well-known guy out there. He just said, remove Angular, install React. And I bet, okay, raise your hand if you did that. Okay. 2, 3, 4. So I can understand the fear at that moment, right? But I'm here to tell you that we're all human, and we all have, we write code where we feel like, okay, that was okay yesterday, and the day after, you just feel like, who wrote that thing? And you want to rewrite that from scratch. So I want to ask you a question quickly. how many people here, I mean, who doesn't change his code? Who, like the last few days, who wrote code like last week and this week didn't think about, let's refactor that thing. Like someone who did that actually, who refactored his code this week or just even the last 5 days. Why did you do that? Because you had some, you realized that things were not the way, they're not the same as you the first time you write the thing. So this is what's happening with Angular 2, because there is a problem, so we gotta solve those problems and move on. So Angular 1 isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Google has up to 1,600 applications written in Angular 1. And by the time Angular 2 becomes mainstream, we're in Belgium, right? Okay, we're in Belgium. By the time Angular 2 becomes mainstream, we still have at least 2 years. So you guys are fine. But my goal is not to tell you that you should wait 2 years. My goal here is to tell you that you can start now. So those are the things that you saw on the internet a few weeks ago. Google telling the world that we're here, we're going to support that thing for a long time. And the second one is what everyone felt like, oh, there is no migration path. Let me tell you something. There is one, and it's super easy. Just before my talk, and this is really funny, I went to this room. How many people went to the Angular talk right there? So I heard like, oh, the migration will be difficult and those kind of stuff. Yeah, there's some fear. I can understand developers when they see this kind of stuff. But trust me, it is pretty simple. It is just like having fun and realizing like you're going toward the future now. So this is the reality. Angular 2 is coming soon, and Angular 1 isn't going anywhere. And he approves that, so you should. So now I'm just going to focus on, wait a second. I'm going to focus on things you know or you should know in 2015 while using your Angular application, and things you should apply today that's going to make you more relevant tomorrow. But when I say tomorrow, by the end of this talk, you will realize that actually tomorrow is the minute after my talk. So one of them is everything is a component. The web is turning itself as a set of components. Who heard about web components here? Damn, you guys don't sleep at night. You should be coding Java, or I don't know, you're watching web components. It's perfect. React, everyone heard about React here, like everything is a component and stuff like that. In Angular, there is this thing called directive, but directive components. When I said everything is a component, you should think about writing your application as, I start with the component definition, what I want it to look like, and then I implement its behavior. The second thing is use controller as. Who knows controller as in the room? It's a lot of empty space in the middle right there. And this room is full. Okay, so, okay. We're going to fix that right now. The third one is, I mean, just to make sure that the $scope, controller as is tied to $scope in Angular. That little service that was useful a few years ago, but it's not anymore, and it shouldn't exist in your code at all. So I'm saying that right now again. If you have $scope in your code by 4 this afternoon, pull your code, remove that. I mean, it's just a regex, and you remove that, and you inject something else, and you're good to go. And I explain you why you should be doing that. To use the module system to turn your application into small packages. And I use the word packages in that case because someone told me, those guys are Java badass. You should not talk about modules. They know packages. So, okay, let's put it packages, because actually, if you can think in terms of packages, your application becomes really modular. And the last one is the fact that you can optionally upgrade your application to the next version of JavaScript, which is called ES6, or ES20. Who said that? I mean, they said ES 2015, but we use ES6. It's simpler. Or you use TypeScript, and I would really recommend that. So those are I just list 4 steps. 4. There are more than that. If you go on the internet, you're going to find more options. But I'm just focusing on those 4 for now, because we only have 1 hour. So everything is a component. Let's take this component. It's a simple one, right? When you see it, you know that, well, I have a card which has a title and a kind of a date, and you can basically click there and get a register for this event, for example. So how would you define this component? First option, it's a card topic. Okay, I know people will say, but this is not HTML. Well, you guys know about web component, so this is HTML, right? But this could be anything. This could be Angular. This could be React. I'm not putting any assumption on what this is about. I'm just saying, like, this is a component, which means that the mechanism behind the scene could be whatever you want. But we're talking about Angular here. So when you have this component, you start thinking about what's the template behind this component. And you get this. A lot of information here, but you guys understand what's going on here. The third one will be, well, let's define the mechanism behind this component. So everyone understand the code here, restrict, scope. Okay, how many people feel like this code is basically what they've been writing for a while? Okay. You guys are pretty good. So when you see this code here, you're basically thinking about isolate scope. I have a template, I have a restrict, and it's a simple one. But, okay, that was the first thing. Everything as a component. Everything is a component. Now, the second rule was use controller as. You see this code. It's just a simple controller, right? But as you can see, I call it topics controller with capital T. Means that in the Java world, you will call it a class. Some people will say, okay, it's a function or whatever. But actually, if you want to mimic the two, you will think, if you think about it as a class, you will say, but what is scope? Topics here, it's supposed to be your kind of model you're going to bind to the view. But you're assigning that to a $scope, and that's because you read the documentation on Angular.org, and it was fantastic. And you did that, and you saw everything updating in real time. But that was a lie. That's a thing that causes you a lot of issues. The more your application grows, the more you start realizing that you don't have control on your $scope anymore. So get rid of that and use something simpler. So as you can see here, wow. I think everyone in this room loves removing code that's not necessary. Like you see your source code shrinking like that. Let's do that. I go from there and I end up with this dot topic. But this is just when I reach this point, I can start using controller as inside my template, and it makes really my code more namespace-ish way of working. But then, I still have an issue here, but I'm going to explain a little bit later. The next one is use module system to turn your application into small packages. What do I mean by that? Let's get back to the controller we had. The controller is still this function, and now we have the beautiful context this, where we put our topics, and we get this data service retrieving all the component. all the topics, by the way, sorry. So, but there is an issue. What is this Angular.module on top of the page? Anyone knows? Anyone can tell me, like, just scream, like, what is this thing on top? Just say it. Sorry? Package name. Whoa, okay. As I said, they're Java developers, so they use package. Anyone else? Come on, guys, don't be shy.
Asking Angular to return the module with the name philos.work.
Okay, so basically you're saying, like, this is what you call a package, a module, right? That's where you encapsulate I mean, a kind of module, right? But what I'm saying here is, when you create a package, topic.controller is just that function. That's basically where you put all your view model. But in this page, if you think about a huge application which has 120 services, controllers, so 120 files, on every single file, you're going to have those two lines on top, on every single file. Okay, probably you don't see the problem we're having here, but what I'm saying is the fact that we can turn that into something way simpler. But the question will be, what is this export right here? That's the module system I'm talking about. If you turn your code from here to the next one, your code becomes, this one becomes easily testable. It's just a function. If you want to test that, you just import it somewhere else. And you end up with something that looks like this. Okay, now everyone in the room should be like, this looks like Java import? No, not yet. Almost. But let me revert that quickly. See this. The question I always ask, okay, at Philos, we went through many companies out there in Belgium and Netherlands, and one of the things I realized that I don't know how we end up in companies using Java in their backend. Most of them, they're actually in the room. I can see a few of them. So whenever they say, okay, we move our application to Angular, and they show me this code, and I ask them, does this look like Java thing you use most of the time? They say no. I mean, it just doesn't. But if you transition to this, you're already into, okay, I'm importing a module, I use that inside my file. Which means that you can see the import topics controller from controller's topics, you're clearly saying that I'm just going to get that file. To build my module here, I'm importing that file inside here, and then if tomorrow you want to use another technology with the same function, you can still import that inside that application, whether it's Angular or React or Backbone. You can just import the same thing, which has nothing to really tie to Angular in the way you build that. That's my point here. So the previous one can become clearly a simple class that has all the behavior you want, basically mimic a model inside your application, and then you can reuse that for any type of application and not only Angular application. You guys you understand my point here? You good with that, or you feel like, okay, that's not there yet? Okay, I can see that people are just wondering. But my point is, you can reach that level of modularity and make your code more readable. So you end up with this thing. You create a function, and then you export that. And the function is called topics controller, and you can now import that in the entry point that I call index.js right here. So before moving to something else, can you see the code here? Is it big enough? Yeah? Or you want it this way? No, okay. I think you can see it clearly. So, I have a simple example here. This was probably abstract, but let's check this code. Okay, it's obviously. So I have my entry point, which is just a simple file. And as I said, everything is a component. This is a component. I just defined a component, which is, I mean, you guys can see how small is this index.html file. I don't have all the script and stuff like that. I only have one script. But what this allows me to do is the fact that I have a module, list of modules here. And you can see I have a book and a core module for my application. But if I go inside my index.js, see how my code looks like. I'm clearly importing Angular. It doesn't come from somewhere in the global scope. I'm importing it inside my file. Then I import the modules I'm going to be using inside my file. So it's not really a random thing like, OK, let's put those files in a certain order to make sure that this one loads before this other one. I can see people in the room who understand that thing like, OK, let's put this script. Ah, no, but this one loads before this other one. No, that's not what you want to do. You want to make sure that you have one entry point. And your entry point here is just this index.js. And then from that point on, you can decide, do I want the core module? No, I don't want that. I can switch that with something else that's basically called common module. Because one day, you decide to rewrite your application just that module. And you can clearly see how here you can turn a component from one to another without having to destroy anything else. So now let's clearly see what is inside this app module. For example, book. Let's take the book. The book here has an index.js. Once again, this is the entry point of my app. This is the entry point of this module. But if I open here, you can clearly see that here I'm importing all the rest. I need a service. I need a controller. I need all the stuff. I import that inside the index.js here. What's happened with the rest is the fact that you, here I can clearly say that now if you go inside, let's take service or controller will be just fine. There is clearly nowhere here where you can say, oh, this is really Angular related. Oh, sorry, just gonna get that off the chart. So this is just a simple class. As you can see, it's just a simple class. And what I do is I export it clearly here. So at the end of the day, you just take this file and you can test it somewhere else without having to remove the Angular things. Okay, obviously line 4 here is Angular-ish, but you can remove that. And you can do all those injections inside your index.js to really isolate your component from Angular as a whole. You guys understand what I'm saying here? So using export or just classes, those are the things you guys know. There is no a function inside the IFI and all the stuff. There is no such a thing. So if you reach that level of modularity, I can guarantee you that Angular 2, the transition from 1 to 2 is just a matter of, well, we don't need this index here. So you come here and you change instead of, OK, you don't have this import here anymore. So you don't even need that, this one, for example. So if I go till, if we remove all of this, you don't need all the stuff, and you can directly import So let's just go at the end here, and you can say, I want to import Angular2 from Angular2. So you import that, you still have the module, you still have the bootstrap, and you end up just transitioning to Angular2 in few keystrokes. And yes, it is easy. And by the way, this repo, you have access to that. I put it on the end of the slide. You can check it out and see if it fits your needs and give me some comments there. But my goal here is basically to give you a starting point where you feel like, well, I can transition from vanilla JavaScript today to ES6 or TypeScript. So let's back to the slides. So this is where we left. And now we're going to migrate this component from Angular 1 to Angular 2. So, and some people will say it's just a matter of switching. It's just a matter of switching board. And yes, my friend Bart he knows how to do that. Just step back and let those guys plug their new framework. And now let's get back to work. So, the same component. See this. The same directive definition. And I'm actually talking about Angular 2 here. So there is no Angular 1. But there is probably one thing you can clearly see the difference between 1 and 2. Anyone spot that? Okay. Damn it, people are sleeping. Come on, wake up. There are brackets there. What the hell are those brackets? So, now let's define the component. Really simple. A selector, still car topic. You can clearly see the link here. I got a directive definition here, a template. But this code is probably like, what the hell is this ng component? The class thing. But I'm using vanilla JavaScript here. No TypeScript, no ES6. It's just JavaScript without all those supersets. Although ES6 is actually JavaScript. And then, okay, this one is probably a bit awkward, but I tried to bring that to something you know. I have a function, car topic, I have a property inside. But if you can see, you can see on ng component, so I have these car topic.annotations. How many people use annotations or decorators? You have that in Java, right? So how many people use that on a daily basis? So you know what they're all about. And you're going to get that for free. The same thing in the way you build your component. But now I'm still using vanilla JavaScript, so there is no ES6 or TypeScript. So the template looks like this. By the way, it's exactly the same template we had in Angular 1. You guys can see that, can spot that? Or there's some stuff you feel like, sorry? The star? Yeah. Bracket? Okay. I'm going to tell you something. When you saw the first time the slides for Angular 1, were you able to spot anything that was different and like to realize that this thing is a start, so it should be, it means probably this. This is a bracket. It probably means this. No, I think you probably have one slide, one template, and you're the one who should know, oh, this one is ngIf, so it should probably be a template with two-way bindings, or it's probably one-way bindings and all the stuff. So I'm going to explain the meaning of this thing here, but I can clearly see people in the room like, what the hell are those syntax? So I said Angular 2 is coming, and we can't cover Angular 2 in 31 minutes. But now, for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to cover something which is if you want to remember what is Angular 2 by the end of today, it's just let's focus just on the syntax, the template syntax. Because to me, when I see Angular 2 versus Angular 1 versus Angular 2, the first thing that makes sense right away, and my friends there were saying like, debuggers, IDEs, they don't understand what this thing is about, so they cannot help you while you're typing. While you're typing, they cannot help you like, oh, you're typing, the model you're bind to is this, so I can automatically fetch the functions, and you can just type the name, the first letter of the function, and you have auto-completion. You don't have that because, it's not that well designed in Angular 1, but we learn with years that it wasn't. So let's get back to this template. I can clearly see people in the room saying like, before, that's what you have in Angular 1, but the template I shown before had brackets, parentheses, and all the stuff. But here, how could you spot topic.image on ngIf? Is it two-way bindings? ngSource, topic, why do I put curly braces around that and I didn't put it on topic.image? NGClick, what is NGClick? By now, you all know that NGClick is probably that thing where you click, it fetch that, it erase that event. But that's because you learned that. So my point here is like, when I read this template, it's because I know Angular 1 that I can spot directly, oh, this is a two-way binding. The second one is probably a one-way, just a one-way binding. And oh, this one is NGClick, and register should probably be inside the directive definition. That's because I know Angular. But my point here is, when you see this is Angular 1. The one, green one, it's Angular 1. You see this and you say, okay, that I understand. What is topic? Is it an attribute? Is it a property? If you transition, the way to know if topic is a two-way bindings or not is to open the definition. So you're in front of your template, and you have to open the definition to see that, oh, there is an isolate scope, and there is two-way bindings. But it could have just been an @ which is say, okay, this is a string, just pass me that string, or pass me whatever you have there, and I will just bind that to my template. So you had to open this. But what I'm saying here is, if you had to just read it right inside the template, without having to open the definition. So by reading this, I know that, well, this is one-way binding. Second one. If people think that topic between bracket is weird, okay, I agree with you. Like the first time I saw that, I was like, huh? But you can still use binding topic. It's actually the same thing, literally. But I bet that the more people use Angular 2, the more they will use with the bracket. So the next one is this ngIf and ngSource. ngSource is obviously, as you can see, a thing that's bind to the property, the attribute image source. But you can write yourself this own directive. Why do you need another directive if you can bind directly to the source? It's a property. See, if you can directly bind to the source, then your things becomes easier to read. So we can transition from that to the second one. So what I'm saying, the start is clearly saying that this should be a directive that someone has imported inside this template. Someone has built that. This is what you call a structural component. It doesn't it basically gives some behavior to your component, but it's not a directive component. You can make the difference in Angular 1. So you still have a one-way binding here. The next one will be NGClick. I have this function, but actually NGClick is one of those directives. When you see them, you're like, oh, I know what it does, but you have NGClick, NGKeyPress, but they're all over on top of the native one. So the second syntax is basically saying, this is an event. This is an event, period. Then you're the one who decide, oh, it's an event, so I can put key up. I can put key press directly here without having to write a whole directive doing this or having to load the entire Angular source code that's going to bring you all those directives you don't even need when you use your application. So, NGModel, that everyone knows. Everyone knows. Who doesn't know NGModel? Who doesn't? Security, there's someone here who doesn't know NGModel. That is not possible. You use that every day. And that's the thing, when people saw, we tap inside an input and then you see everything update in real time, you feel like Angular is magic. That NGModel, that's the thing you use as an example. But I don't know if it's a two-way binding, once again. So the syntax here, okay, bear with me. I know you. I'll let you digest that for a few seconds. And someone who's going to help me explain, after what we saw before, someone's going to help me explain what is this doing. We already know that it's the two-way bindings. I can see someone here explaining. Can you help us with that? Yeah. I spot you, man. Yep.
And the round parentheses say it's an event, so it's one-way binding with an event, so it's two-way binding.
That was fantastic. That was just fantastic. You nailed that. Okay, I can move to the next slide because that's the explanation. So simple. So once again, what my goal here is to say that when you're gonna see obviously your explanation is pretty clear here. You can write that this way if the syntax doesn't fit your test. You can write NGModel, it's binding here, and then NGModel change to raise the event here. So now, when you read this template, people will say, oh, there is a start, now you know what the means. But not only you know, but your IDE will know, which means that your IDE will be able to spot the fact that image here, if you type it wrong, it knows that you're passing something that doesn't work. It won't just display something randomly, no. So this is good for a team, like if you work in a company, 10 developers working on the same code base, when you read this, you know clearly what's going on, and you don't assume that people know Angular. OK, so a few things in Angular are gone completely, Angular 1. But they're gone in Angular 1, and I hope they're gone in Angular 2, sorry. But they're actually the things you don't use most of the time. The first one is $scope. Gone. Remove it. I mean, now you can do that. OK, don't remove the controllers. You're going to need your controller because actually your controller will become the component, the starting point for your component in Angular 2. So you saw how we declared the directive, we put a restrict and all the stuff, gone. Forget about that. Next one, the module system. Someone said, yeah, Angular.module is going to create a kind of package. If you turn your application into something, if you use module systems, this will be gone in a way you won't even realize at some point in Angular 2. So the transition with this point only is really, really beneficial. And no more jQuery or jQuery Lite and this kind of stuff. But there are more stuff here that I won't have time to cover, but I'm just giving you some stuff you guys know and use on daily basis that are basically gone in Angular 2. So now let's talk about Angular 2 in a nutshell. I have 21 minutes. And I'm not going to cover everything in Angular 2, obviously, but I'm going to give you some stuff that I even heard, like, those are the problems in Angular 1. And yes, they're the problem, because Angular 1, the more your application grows, the more you have the digest loop that basically takes some time, like a lot of times. And then in Angular 2, they basically use like monolithic JavaScript, just raw JavaScript, observable, and you can actually write your own detection tools, and yeah, it goes way faster. Something which is really, really important is server-side rendering. Like companies, media companies using Angular for their Angular 1 to build application that will be available, that can be crawlable. It wasn't a good idea a few months ago. Things improved. But in Angular 2, you're going to have it for free. The native mobile UI, native script or React Native, get that too. Compile at build time, it's something you can get, you can put together with server-side rendering at some point. Because what we're basically saying there is, well, application will, after building my application, I can basically compile it right, not at the runtime, not inside the browser, right using your build tools. And then you can ship that build application to your customers. We don't need all those directives, NGClick, NGSource, all the stuff gone. You don't need that. And that's the point I mentioned before in terms of IDs. I mean, you guys use things like IntelliJ, WebStorm. Those tools will be just really, really happy to see those templates coming. The native lazy loading, we had to write libraries to have native the lazy loading. Okay, I skip one point here, but yeah, that's basically what I said before. But the next one is native lazy loading. That's one you get it for free too. And DI, who knows what DI is? Dependency injection. Who knows how many dependency injection you have in Angular 1? 1, 2, or you don't even count because for you it's like the same, that thing where you inject something inside an array and then you make sure that when your application is minified, it doesn't crash. Is that all? Okay. No, it's you have things called the link function. You know the link function, right? Link function in Angular? Right. That thing which is, you should put first parameter, the first one. Damn, people are sleeping. Come on, people. Link function. The first parameter, scope. The second one. Okay, you guys gonna leave the room? The second one, element. The third one, attributes. And the last, not the last one, but I'm gonna stop at 4. And the next one is, okay, require controller, whatever you want to require from another directive. Those are what you call dependency injection by position. And you also have the other dependency injection where you put things inside that array. You make sure that they're well aligned. And when your application runs, Angular will go read those parameters, inject that inside your app. Those are too many mechanisms. We're going to have one mechanism. It's just function. What do you need? I need those parameters, just inject that there. That's it. So, TypeScript and Angular2. This is basically our last point. So, TypeScript and Angular2, the thing is like, the question people will ask is, why TypeScript? How many people work on Angular project here in the room alone? Like, I'm the only developer on the source code, and I can do whatever I want. Oh, come on, guys. OK, that's actually not a lot. So most of people work in the team of, OK, let's say up to 5 people in the team. That's already, yeah. And like 100 people. OK, like more than 10 people in the team. And you guys use JavaScript, not ES6 or TypeScript, all the stuff. So one-person team is something you can manage. You choose whatever you want. When you reach 5 people already, you start having some guidelines and trying to make sure that people follow the rules pretty well. But you can end up with someone who uses a number, like a parameter you call whatever name, and someone put a number there. But it's your customer is going to call you at 3 a.m. in the morning, like, I wasn't able to get my money out of your application. And that's because someone played with types. So TypeScript is basically a superset of JavaScript, a typed superset of JavaScript that compiled to JavaScript, like plain old JavaScript. But it brings you everything like classes, types. So if you have, let's say, a book, you're gonna need to have an interfaces that represent that book and make sure that everyone who use a function that requests a book should pass something that's completely match that. Angular2 is developed. It's actually used at Google for. OK, TypeScript is used to build Angular2. So my point here is, if one day you decide to move to Angular2, and you type on Google, oh, I want to write this component in Angular2, 90% of the time, the example will be written in TypeScript. So TypeScript is basically, it's built by it's actually built by Microsoft, but Google used that to build their product, and so you should. At some point, if your team is already like 5 to 10, I can take that offline on if people want to me to show them really the benefits in terms of how in the team this can be really useful. But we have an example here already, but I can really go further on that. It's really easy to set up, really easy. And you have everything about annotation, decoration, and that thing, those things, you use that already in Java. IDEs will just use that to help you even more with your code. So if today you decide to use TypeScript, you can just start using it without changing your entire application. You can incrementally change your application toward TypeScript. And one of the things when Microsoft built that was to create something which is scalable. And some people will say, scalable in terms of what? To me, the first scalability part I will see it's in terms of a team, how your team grows and how you manage to have consistency while your application is growing and your team is growing too. So we're gonna rebuild the same component. Now you guys can read this template pretty well. We're gonna rebuild the same component in TypeScript. And keep in mind all the tricks I've shown you about Angular 1, how you can transition to Angular 2. Keep in mind that part, and let's see how you would do that in TypeScript. So we have the definition, and this is just a component. Now we're done, we can go home. Okay. No one wants to leave. Okay, so it's not over. So here is your component in TypeScript. Give you a few seconds to wrap that, run. We still have a selector. We have a template URL, but we have a class. And class is something you guys know pretty well. And we're using decorators here to basically, annotations and decorators, to basically enhance our class. Inputs, you see the at.input. Something I have to mention here is the fact that none of the thing on this file is coming from a random place, like, oh, is it available on the global scope? No. It is there. You import that. You import component, view, and input, and you use that inside your application. And the $input, the at input down there is basically the binding you have on top. You're basically saying, I'm just going to send a topic, and how am I getting that inside my TypeScript? Just import the input, and you get that. So, my point here is like, TypeScript is really easy to use, right? Still, you can still have a learning curve, but I always say that for people who never use things like C# or Java or everything OOP. But you guys know you use interfaces, you use generics and all the stuff in Java. Moving toward TypeScript will give you the benefits of, oh, I know that thing. You can just use it to build really, really robust applications. And I've shown you some stuff by saying, well, this is the future. This is what's going to happen in the future. But the reality is the future is now. It is now. You can use all those tools now, today, to build an Angular application with the version 1 still. And really get your team into a way of like modularizing your application and really feel more confident refactoring all the stuff. Because things like TypeScript, with coded editor like IntelliJ and stuff like that, or Visual Studio per se, or Visual Studio Code, you get for free really nice way to refactor your code and move forward in terms of as a team. So this is basically where I should end. You get a list of resources at the end. I put a lot of stuff there. If you have questions after today, you can still ping me on Twitter if you want. I do sleep at night, but you can still ping me on Twitter. I will answer anyway. So if you feel like you want to know more in terms of using all those technology, we have a hacker lab, and we call it hacker lab in Brussels, where you can just randomly come, and we have hack jams and things where you can hack on those technology with a group of people, like just a Saturday afternoon, jump into a code and learn things together. It's a community. Our company is basically a community builder. And that's all we do. We hack. We do that. That's it. And I put the link on the resource here, where the first one is basically where you can get the example I've shown you. And yeah, that's basically it for me. If you guys have any questions, I get the mic. Hello.
Hello. Will you share the slides? Because the links you are giving in the resources don't point to anything there.
You get the slides?
Will you share the
slides?
Oh,
yes, yeah.
On Twitter
is there
or
a way?
something?
Yeah, I can share that on Twitter, definitely.
Okay, and when TypeScript is compiling into plain JavaScript, you
Yeah.
said? So is it compiling into ES5 or ES6?
ES5, and you can decide which version you want to target, obviously, in TypeScript.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Is there something like router UI already implemented for Angular 2?
So, router?
UI.
You have a new. Okay, you're probably going to have another question. There is a router system in Angular 2, which actually you can already use today in Angular 1.4. One of the benefits of Angular UI was the master detail, right? I think everyone realized that at some point, and you can do that with the new Angular router.
Yeah, but many people use router UI from GitHub,
Yeah.
which is a bit different.
The Angular UI, the Angular UI team is also working on the integration of Angular 2. So I think you're gonna just have a continuity over there. I mean, the community is just amazing. A lot of people are working here and there on helping the Angular team moving forward in terms of shipping that product. Questions? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Question here.
Yeah, just a very quick question. What's the difference between the asterisk and the brackets in the template you showed?
Second?
The asterisk or the brackets, what's the difference between the two? Because you explained them as being identical.
Oh, I didn't explain. Oh, probably I didn't make it clear. I give you this, and you take the next question. You were the one. But I'm just gonna. No, they're different. As I said, the start is you're clearly saying that this is a directive, and I'm gonna show you on the slide because it's actually obvious. If I roll back here, you see that when I create when I create my directives, we're using. You can see here I have directives NGIF. I'm importing NGIF, and this could be whatever directive you want to build. But in Angular 2, you're gonna have to import them explicitly. And not just assume that, well, Angular load them already like ngIf. No, there is no assumption there. You need to import them, and you annotate them with a star inside your template. So your IDEs know where to find them. And the brackets is just one-way binding. Question?
Here, you said that we must stop using the scope.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
I say
so-
that, and I say that again.
You said it multiple times.
Yes.
So the point is, there are situations in which we have, for example, to watch a variable or to watch the destroy event.
Yeah.
How can we do it without the scope?
Okay. How can we do it without the scope? You know, there is a thing called services in Angular 1, right? If you have to use watchers to basically like update a component here and there, then you're not using services how you should. Because services are singleton, right? If you can encapsulate most of the thing there, you will end up with an application which avoid using scope to manage all those event things. Okay, sometime you will probably need it, I agree, but what I'm basically saying here is avoiding scope as your view model per default. Like you have a class called customer, and your class has a name and a first name. All those are properties you're gonna bind to your template, right? Those are the properties you're not gonna put that on the scope per se, even though Angular will do that for you. But Angular is gonna create a name which you're gonna give that name to create a kind of namespace. And talking about transitioning to Angular 2, that you're just gonna get the same customer function and reuse that in Angular 2 as it is, instead of having to remove scope and stuff like that. That's basically my point there. Maybe one last question, 1 minute.
How is the browser adaptation for the new template syntax? Is it a problem, or can it just work out of the box with Chrome and Internet Explorer and all the others?
No, once again, even Angular, they're all templating language, so Angular is going to read that, interpret that for you, for inside, before rendering that to the browser. So it just makes your life easier in terms of writing, in terms of the developer experience. It's just got way easier. So I have 30 seconds, not even. So probably another question? OK, I think I'm good here. Is that all? Yeah. That's it.